A lot of you guys, myself included, we love a good challenge in Terraria. I've always loved the potential for self-imposed challenges in this game, but oftentimes they're limited to just use a specific class. Whether it's a series of weapons like guns only, or just a class as a whole, it's been done a billion times. Although I always have fun with challenges like this, I wanted something new. With the very recent addition of the Lilith's necklace, I figured this was the perfect opportunity for a self-imposed challenge. Beating Terraria entirely as a wolf. So today, that's exactly what I'll be doing. Not much else to say from here. Let's get started. Dog. Yeah, I couldn't really think of a good name. Dog is a softcore character and will be the one joining us on this Terraria adventure. I'll be playing on a small-sized world in Master Mode. The world's name? Hi. Also called it Dog. Look, man, I'm not the best at naming things. Can we just move on with the video? Everybody knows that the first thing you do in any Terraria playthrough is chop down some trees. And as I do just that, I'd like to real quick explain how this challenge is going to work. First off, the wolf is not bad at all. It's a hard mode, mount, I guess? It goes in the mount slot, I'm calling it a mount. It's a hard mode mount, so it's meant to be good. Wolf, it's actually good, then where's the challenge? I'm getting there. In order to make the challenge more difficult, I'll not be using any armor throughout the entire run. This also makes the challenge more realistic, because everybody knows wolves can't wear armor. Now do not take this the wrong way. Basically any mobility item past the mech bosses outclasses the wolf by a long shot. So being stuck with the wolf for the entire game and having no armor means this run is not going to be easy. But let's worry about pre-hard mode for now. For the most part, there isn't a ton going on in pre-hard mode, so I'll be moving through it fairly quickly. But I would like to highlight some of the strategies I take in preparation for certain bosses. Right now, that boss is the Eye of Cthulhu. Some of you may be wondering why I'm even fighting him. I can't use the Shield of Cthulhu, and the Demonite weapons I'll be able to craft are terrible against anything past the Eye of Cthulhu. This is exactly what I was thinking as well, but come on, what kind of run doesn't fight the Eye of Cthulhu? Although I don't get anything out of the drops themselves, the money I'll get from selling them all, on top of the money already dropped by the Eye of Cthulhu, is enough to justify fighting him. The next couple objectives are very straightforward. First off, I'm going mining. Just like in any other run, I'm looking for life crystals and ores and all that, but the most important thing I can walk out with is one of the different cloud in a bottle variations. The reason these are so important is because they're one of the only ways I will ever be able to improve my mobility. Because I don't have access to wings, other mounts, or even hooks, the bottles will be very impactful for the rest of the run, so best believe I'm loading up on as many as I can get. Unfortunately, this first trip wasn't very lucky. I only ended up walking away with one life crystal, but I was at least able to get a gold pickaxe to mine some demonite. I'm well aware I essentially just said Demonite was trash and only good for money like a minute ago, but that's after beating the Eye of Cthulhu. Before the Eye of Cthulhu, Demonite's great, and with a Malice or Demon Bow, I'll be able to get to the jungle extremely early. I decided to cut the first trip fairly short in order to start building some NPC houses. I'm not too worried about happiness at the moment, I'm more concerned with just getting people to move in. As I briefly mentioned a second ago, the next step is getting to the jungle. Literally any jungle weapon will be able to carry me to Skeletron, so getting there as soon as possible would be ideal. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this lousy umbrella will be sufficient enough for exploring the jungle, so before I leave I need to get a little more demonite. After finishing up the houses, I quickly grabbed some demonite from a nearby corruption biome, crafted a demon bow, and headed over to the jungle biome. I'm not gonna lie, I may have bitten off a little more than I could chew here. I managed to grab a life crystal and some feral claws, but it didn't take long for me to die. It also didn't take long for me to give up, because immediately after this it was back to the caves. Lucky for me, I found a pretty nice cave below the one I had previously explored. Only a few minutes later, I got a demonic snowball can from an ice chest, a solid upgrade over my demon bow. I continued exploring, blew up and died, and took it as the perfect opportunity to organize my inventory. Always gotta look at the glass as half full, guys. This death was complete bullshit, by the way. Like, I can't even begin. Eventually, after returning to mining, I discovered a mushroom biome. If you didn't know, mushroom biomes have some sort of increased rate for chests and life crystals and all that, so this is a huge find. Still no cloud in a bottle, which is pretty much the only thing I'm looking for in gold chests, but I did manage to find a gold bag to make up for it. I put my own creative touch on some underground houses, and then I took a break. When I returned from my break, I briefly explored the rest of the cave, uncovered a fat gold portal, and went home. Overall, I was able to acquire 220 health, a band of regen, and a snowball can, both with great modifiers, a ton of money, potions, and a couple of Eye of Cthulhu summons. Now it's time to revisit the jungle, and this time I feel a lot more comfortable. The snowball can made exploring the jungle a breeze, and in only a few minutes, I was able to find a boomstick, a whole lot of life crystals, a sharpening station, and finally, a cloud in a bottle. And then I died. Alright, with the early game grind officially out of the way, the rest of pre-hard mode should be pretty smooth sailing from here. And while I prepare to fight the Eye of Cthulhu, I'd like to tell you all the current plan I have in mind. First, obviously, the Eye of Cthulhu. I've previously mentioned that I'm only fighting him for money, and this remains entirely true. With a boomstick and a hard mode mount, it's no secret that he's gonna get clapped. And with the 3 summons I have, I'll be left with around 50 gold. Once I'm through with him, I'll immediately fight Skeletron the next night. Definitely a step up from the Eye of Cthulhu, especially when you consider that I can't use a dash or a hook for this fight, but either way, I didn't go to the jungle for nothing. Despite having slightly lower health than I would prefer, I'm still pretty damn stacked, and I shouldn't have too much trouble with Skeletron. Next, I'll explore the dungeon. Primarily, I'm looking for a Shadow Key, but if I can find a Cobalt Shield, that'd also be great. Using the Shadow Key, I'll get the best weapons available in pre-hard mode, kill the Eater of Worlds, kill the Wall of Flesh, and get to hard mode. Sure, there's things I'll do in between, but that's the main gist. Anyways, with the fresh new bed I had just crafted, I slept until nighttime, and soon enough, it was time to fight the Eye of Cthulhu. Like I predicted, the fight obviously wasn't very hard, but it was at least a good opportunity to get a sense of how the wolf felt during a boss fight. After burning through the 3 summons I had, I was left with around 36 gold and 191 Demonite to sell in the future, which I'll probably leave in a chest and forget about. Additionally, I decided to hold on to one of the Shield of Cthulhu's because I had a good modifier. Sticking to the plan, I'd like to try and fight Skeletron this upcoming night. I have about half the night left in a full day, which should be plenty of time considering the only thing I really need to do is build an arena. I started with a few miscellaneous tasks, collecting wormies, killing a shark, and building some ocean houses. From there on, I had the entire daytime to construct an arena. Typically, the arena is built right on top of the dungeon, but since this dungeon spawned directly in a corruption biome, I instead built the arena in a nearby forest biome. The arena is nothing special, just 2 large platforms and a campfire. Because the wolf can jump so high, the platforms are quite spread out. If I were playing in a normal world, I would probably have put them a lot closer depending on what hook I have, but other than that, the arena is completely normal. With some extra time left before dusk, I made it look a little nicer, organized my inventory, hit the hay, and... wait a damn minute. What's Dog doing? Where's the wolf? I should probably take a moment to explain what's going on here. Obviously, the wolf mount doesn't work while using a bed. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. But that's not the point. Outside of when I'm sleeping, sometimes you'll see Dog show up for a minute. In Terraria, whenever you hit your hook bind, it automatically kicks you out of your mount, even if you don't have a hook equipped. My hook bind also happens to be the same as my quick trash and quick sell bind. I think you all can see where I'm going with this. Because of this, when I'm organizing my inventory or selling things, you may see me exit the wolf mount briefly. So, sorry, it's pretty unavoidable, but seriously, the hell do you want me to do about it? Yep, that's a reset. Outside of sorting items, there's other times where I'll just hit my hook bind out of instinct. Once again, sorry. I doubt this really matters to most of you, but I just wanted to mention it. Hope this cleared some things up, and yeah, back to the video. Taking along a mango and an iron skin potion, I was ready to summon Skeletron. After summoning him, I took a few hits coming out of the corruption biome, but from there on, I didn't make too many mistakes. Due to the scaling nature of this challenge, most pre-hard mode bosses shouldn't be a problem. Being locked into using the wolf, though it does bring some limitations in that I can't use a hook, dash, etc., it's arguably a buff towards overall movement in pre-hard mode. As soon as hard mode hits, however, that's when it starts to become a real problem. In hard mode, you have access to wings, better mounts, and even asphalt, which can all make the wolf irrelevant. That being said, just because pre-hard mode is easier than hard mode does not always mean it's easy. This was evidently reminded to me this fight when I went from full health to being 1 hit away from dying in about 30 seconds. Nevertheless, I was able to survive and bring him to his second phase. Even without a dash, this phase isn't that difficult, and it was honestly more challenging to endure the constant 1 fall damage I kept taking, rather than actually evading the skulls. That's not even a joke either. Like, this shit was seriously so annoying. Only a few minutes later, and Skeletron was dead, granting me both the bone glove and access to the dungeon. Right away, I entered the dungeon, died, probably said something like, "God damn it!" and then cooled down my emotions by building some houses in the jungle before returning to the dungeon for another try. Yep, that's actually what happened. Trust me, I'm just as shocked as you are. Anyways, this time when I returned to the dungeon, I didn't die right away, and eventually I came across the mechanic. I instantly sacrificed her. Look man, a combat wrench is a combat wrench. Besides, I wasn't gonna buy any of her dumb shit anyway. Unfortunately, the mechanic didn't end up dropping a combat wrench, but I was however able to find a dungeon slime and loot my first chest, to which I received a godly aqua scepter. It's no shadow key, but this thing genuinely surprised me with how good it was. I haven't legitimately used this in forever, but whatever changes I've made to it in the last few years clearly did something, as this was incredibly helpful for exploring the rest of the dungeon. It only took a couple minutes before some more dungeon slime showed up, and on the next chest I opened, I was lucky enough to get both a shadow key and a cobalt shield. I had a spare key, so I opened one more chest before returning home. In total, I was able to get all the chest loot I needed, on top of a bewitching table and alchemy table I found along the way. The next course of action was to get to hell and make use of the shadow key I just got. While I was at it, I took a moment to mine some obsidian. I'll need a molten pickaxe for hard mode, plus you can never go wrong with an obsidian shield. I grabbed a few extra in case I wanted to craft some hellstone weapons, then continued onwards. As I approach hell, some of you may be wondering what I'm looking for in shadow chests. Well, everything you can get from shadow chests is amazing, but what I'm really looking for is a treasure magnet. I'm kidding. Nobody wants a treasure magnet. I am being serious though with that first statement. All the weapons are good. After a tad bit of waiting for this lava to drain, I received a Sun Fury. I could have left right then and there, but I wanted to see what else I could get. I found 2 more shadow chests containing a Dark Lance and another Sun Fury before leaving. With a Sun Fury, I'm set for the rest of free hard mode. Despite lacking in literally every other front, it simply doesn't matter. All the tasks I have left, such as killing the goblin army and searching for life crystals, are made so much easier with a solid weapon like the Sun Fury. Keeping in mind the plan I told you all earlier, however, the Eater of Worlds is up next. I spent some time creating a little potion area in advance before heading to the corruption biome. I built the arena over top of the dungeon just to be ironic, but after realizing there are no shadow orbs in that specific corruption biome, I had to come up with a different plan. And let's just say, this shit went from ironic to moronic. Because there's no easily accessible corruption cavern by the dungeon, I instead would need to break the 3 orbs in a nearby corruption biome and lure the Eater of Worlds to my arena by the dungeon. I did have to cross over a forest biome very briefly, but I figured he would just go into some rage mode for a bit or something. Alright, so that's that. Luckily there was a nearby corruption biome, and now I was ready to fight him. Yeah, it's never that easy. I broke the shadow orbs, and I had to scaffold out of there quick, otherwise I'd get trapped. I hockeyed to my platforms and... well, now I was trapped, and I didn't have much time on my hands before I died. I crafted some platforms and just tanked everything. Straight beelined it for the cavern I knew would get me out of there. I made it to the cavern with only a quarter of my health left and literally jumped for my life. And just as I was about to reach the exit, this asshole came in and trapped me again. I tanked another hit from the head, and now I was actually one shot away from dying. I escaped the cavern, barely made this jump over him, and ran to the arena. Once I made it to the forest biome, however, the Eater of Worlds ran away. I returned to the corruption biome to try and lure him back up, but it was too late. He despawned. Guys, when you leave the corruption biome, the Eater of Worlds does not enter some rage mode. He just flat out leaves. What a waste of time. Whatever, I still had to fight him, so I started work on another arena. I didn't have much wood on me, so I chopped some down from the surroundings, and in short time, the new arena was finished. Come on, man, it's really not that bad. I still had the buffs from last fight. I forgot to use them in the pure state of chaos that occurred 5 minutes ago, so I was ready to summon him again. I broke the 3 shadow orbs, and this time I made sure I had platforms ready. I got to the arena smoothly, and finally I was actually fighting him. All I had to do from here was just be careful about the spit, and I'd be fine. Of course, I still almost blew it by falling into a hole and taking a ton of damage, but I managed to escape and played more carefully from there. Eventually, the Eater of Worlds was dead, I received my worm scarf and went home. With the shadow skills I got from the fight, I upgraded all my tools to Demonite and started mining. There's only a couple things left to do in pre-hard mode. First, I need to top off my max health. I only need 5 life crystals, so it shouldn't take that long. I'd also really like to get a goblin army to occur. If I wait until hard mode, it's not going to be fun to face at all. Plus, the sooner I get the goblin tinker, the better. Besides those 2, all I have left is to fish, but... that's optional. So back to mining. Prior to finding anything useful, I made sure to die to a boulder. Jokes aside, there's no excuse for how I didn't see this. What the hell am I doing? This time, I was going to be more careful. I went back to the same spot, and it took me about 2 minutes to find the 4 life crystals I needed. Oh shoot, I forgot I need 5. Well, that shouldn't be a problem. Let me just find one more real quick, and... it took me 10 minutes to find the last life crystal. Life crystals are out of the way, now all I need is the goblin army. It's a 1 in 3 chance every day, so it shouldn't take that long. so it shouldn't take that long. While I waited around for a goblin army to occur, I decided to see if I could get a Hellwing bow. Currently, I don't have anything good for the wall of flesh, so this would be an amazing find. Only a couple minutes of searching later, and I was able to uncover a Hellwing bow. Awkward. Nice. Needless to say, I kept searching. Fortunately, I found another Hellwing bow soon after, and this time with no reforge. While I was down there, I knew I needed to get Hellstone for a molten pickaxe, so using an obsidian skin potion I found, I mined about 100 Hellstone and returned to the surface. As I organized my inventory, I noticed it was approaching daytime, so once I was done, I went to sleep for a few minutes in hopes that a goblin army would occur the next morning. And no goblin army. The next 40 minutes of gameplay is so unimaginably boring, so I'm just going to summarize it all real quick. I built a desert pylon, looted some floating islands, collected fallen stars, and slept for 10 minutes. Yep, that's it. At this point, I gave up. Yes, it's going to be annoying to fight the goblin army in hard mode, but I'm just ready to move on. The only thing left to do in pre-hard mode now is to fight the wall of flesh, and I got right to it. With the amount of time I waited for the goblin army, there was no excuse for me not to be prepared. So, I grabbed some buffs and made my way down to the edge of hell. Not much else to say from here. Before a bunch of enemies started to spawn, I threw the guide Voodoo Doll into the lava and started the fight. Here we go, the wall of flesh. One of the main things I need to point out is that I don't have a ton of room to work with. I only get myself half a small sized world, so it was important to get as much damage out as possible. With no armor though, I needed to find that sweet spot throughout the fight where I had enough distance from the Hungries to not get hit, but was also close enough to the wall of flesh to burst it down. Lucky for me, the Hellwing bow makes this a lot easier, but it still wasn't free. Even with the Hellwing bow, the wall of flesh is most certainly harder than Skeletron. With Skeletron, you can rely on attack patterns, and in general, he's just a very predictable boss. Meanwhile, the wall of flesh just spews out a bunch of random shit while gunning you down with lasers. Even so, I still love this fight. It's super creative, the music fits perfectly, and plus, it's just fun. Once you get down to 25% health, the fight really starts to get moving. The wall of flesh gradually increases in almost every stat the lower he gets, and 25% is about the point where it starts to become a problem. As you can see, dodging is still feasible at this point, but it's a whole lot more challenging than before. Once you get down to 10% however, dodging is completely out of the question. Now it's just a matter of whoever kills the other first, and with only one hit left before dying, I killed the wall of flesh and entered hard mode. Finally, hard mode is here, and now's where the real challenge begins. I took a moment to chill and organize my inventory, because goddamn. Then I went to the corruption biome to break some demon altars. Besides armor and repeaters, everything relating to combat that you can craft with the hard mode ore is complete dog shit. Still, I needed a hard mode anvil and forge, so I hit the caves anyways. The cave I used most got corrupted on the transition to hard mode, which was a good opportunity to go for the Cursed Flame spellbook. Going for a ranged weapon like the Onyx Blaster or a repeater would definitely be better, but I wanted to stay away from range for a little bit and try something I don't use very often. I came across the wizard shortly into mining, which made the Cursed Flame spellbook even more appealing. I continued mining, and only a couple minutes later, well, that boy died. But more importantly, the first ice tortoise I killed dropped a frozen turtle shell. This is insane. I mean, in raw strength, this combined with the Paladin shield is likely one of the most powerful accessories in the game. This would make the challenge a whole lot easier, hence why I decided not to use it. I know a lot of you are not going to like that decision, but I like the idea of getting lucky with a random one-off drop and being carried by it for the rest of the game. Anyways, the rest of the mining trip was nothing special. I mined palladium, orichalcum, and titanium, upgrading drills in between until I had an orichalcum anvil and a titanium forge. From then on, I went back to the corrupted ice cave and started farming for the Cursed Flames spellbook. It didn't take too long to get the Souls of Night and Cursed Flames I needed from the cave. I went to the surface, purchased a spell tome from the wizard, and started searching around for a bookshelf to craft the spellbook. I figured hell would have one somewhere in an obsidian house, so that's where I chose to go first. Cursed Flames, although not the best weapon, is still relatively good and will be plenty for killing the first mech boss. After a few minutes of searching, I was able to find a bookshelf and crafted the Cursed Flames. All I needed to do now was make it stronger. It was already godly, which is very fortunate as I still somewhat haven't gotten a goblin army, however there's still more to be done. Thanks to Shimmer, the shitty ass summoner emblem I got from the Wall of Flesh can be transmuted into a sorcerer emblem. So the next thing I did was visit the Aether biome. While I was at it, I also brought a life crystal and mana crystal for their respective buffs. If you don't know, the Aether biome is always located between the jungle and the ocean, so I picked a random spot and started digging. Lucky for me, Christmas came early, as only a few blocks down, I uncovered a pyramid and moreover, a sandstorm in a bottle. The sandstorm in a bottle is the best bottle variation in the game, and this would be an incredible upgrade to my mobility as a whole. Whoa there, buddy. You weren't allowed to use a frozen turtle shell before. What makes you think you can use this? What? Who the hell are you? This shit's my challenge! Get your ugly ass out of here! I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what is going on with my luck this run. I don't have a goblin army, despite being about to fight the mech bosses. The first ice Taurus I killed dropped a frozen turtle shell, and now this. That being said, unlike the frozen turtle shell, I will be using the sandstorm in a bottle this run. Oh, so the shell was a problem, but the sandstorm? No! Shut up! Let me explain. As you guys know, the bottle variations are the main way I can boost my mobility as the wolf. Without question, I was going to get more bottle variations in the future. All this does is save me from fishing for 48 hours straight. Additionally, this feels a lot more fair than just getting lucky with a random drop. Yeah, well, I'm not buying it. What is there to buy? I just laid out everything in front of you! I dug around for a bit below the pyramid, and soon enough, I came across that iconic Aether tunnel. I got my 2 Aether buffs and cycled through the different emblems until I reached the Sorcerer emblem. Also, I can't tell if this was a bug or not, but for some reason all the enemies were invisible. I don't know, man, this shimmer stuff is weird. I returned back, and finally, I was ready for the mech bosses. I mean, take one look at my accessories and you can tell. Up to this point, I still wasn't sure on what mech boss I wanted to fight first, so I settled on the Destroyer simply because the summon was the easiest to get. First, I built the arena. It's exactly what you'd expect. Some large platforms spread about a double jump distance apart, and the classic Destroyer box. I then went to acquire some Souls of Night, and boom, I was all set. Yeah, this fight was absolute misery. If it weren't for these asshole probes that kept floating all up in my business, maybe I would have been able to do a little more. Honestly, I have no idea why the hell I thought fighting the Destroyer first was a good idea, knowing damn well this weapon only has 1 pierce. I hate this stupid ass game, man, I should just quit. Despite getting cooked up, I certainly don't think it was the Cursed Flame's fault. It's not very well suited against the Destroyer, but I didn't feel like it was a bad weapon. For now, I chose to save the Destroyer for later once I was more prepared, and focus my efforts on Skeletron Prime instead. I had enough Souls of Night left over, all I needed was the 3 Souls of Light, and I could craft the Mechanical Skull. Until now, I've had no reason to be in the Hollow, so I didn't realize it at first, but I had no idea where it generated. I wasn't able to spot anything on my map, but almost immediately after I began searching the world, I was able to locate the Hollow. Directly in the middle of the jungle. I made an attempt to go collect some souls, but come on, it was hopeless from the start. It's safe to say I needed a plan B. Based on some prior knowledge, I knew biomes in this game have a tendency to generate in long diagonal strips. So, in order to avoid the jungle altogether, I tried finding the entrance to the underground hollow from hell. Lo and behold, I was able to find an entrance and farm for the souls of light I needed. I used my magic mirror, crafted the mechanical skull, and slept until nighttime. To me, Cursed Flame seemed like the perfect fit for the Skeletron Prime fight. It makes a lot of sense when you consider Skeletron Prime's strengths and weaknesses and compare them to those of the Cursed Flames. Skeletron Prime is a high defense boss made of few segments, while Cursed Flames is a low pierce weapon with a moderately high base damage. Naturally, I was pretty excited for this fight. I had all my buffs ready, and once night hit, I burned a minute of my time doing random tasks, then summoned Skeletron Prime. Skeletron Prime is, in my opinion, the easiest mechanical boss. Lots of people say the Destroyer is the easiest, but I've never thought that to be the case. Skeletron Prime's got 4 arms, but you only really need to worry about the cannon and the laser. The cannon's main advantage is its damage, 240. Guys, I have 7 defense. The bombs it shoots explode upon impact with the platform, which is both its greatest strength and greatest weakness. If you're fighting on the top platform of an arena, the bombs can catch you off guard and instantly take away half your health. If instead you try to avoid being on the top platform, nearly all the bombs will explode above you, and you're able to ignore the cannon almost entirely. The Prime Laser is the main ranged attack from Skeletron Prime. It doesn't shoot very fast, but it sucks so much ass at aiming that it can oftentimes mess you up. It's not like it just tickles you either. The laser shoots deals 150 damage. The other 2 hands are the Prime Vice and Prime Saw. Both of these act almost the exact same. They're purely melee and will occasionally lash out at you. Being purely melee, they aren't too much of a threat. As long as you keep your distance, you should be fine. Moving on, let's talk about the fight itself. First of all, I can't see shit. It's downpouring in the background, I forgot a shine potion, and there's cursed flames everywhere. As for the actual strategy, unlike with regular Skeletron, I'm not necessarily aiming for any of the arms. It's usually a good idea to try and take out the laser and cannon as soon as possible, but once I hit around a halfway point, I knew I needed to focus the head. Time was becoming a real issue. I didn't have the best damage for the fight, and it certainly didn't help that I completely wasted the first minute of the night setting up a heart lantern. Another issue I faced when trying to deal damage was when he'd fly above me. Cursed Flames is heavily affected by gravity, and most of the time when he was above me, I just couldn't hit him. Ultimately, just as he was about to lose his last few arms, the cannon ended up hitting me on a platform, killing me instantly. Yeah, it sucks to die like that, especially with how low he was getting, but I was confident the fight would go in my favor if given another chance. I got right to grinding out more souls. This time, I was mentally prepared for the fight. I knew I had to give myself more time, and I was fully focused on targeting the head. The arms have a tendency to get caught up in the crossfire anyways, so the goal was to not target them unless they were really low. The Souls of Light didn't take long to acquire, and I immediately left for the Corruption biome. While grinding for Souls of Night, a Corruption Mimic spawned. There was no chance I could fight him down here, so I instead lured him up to the surface. Just let me through the goddamn hole! Of course, as soon as I began luring him up, a pig run spawned in. Not only would he not stop grunting, but he followed me up the entire way through, making it really hard to focus. Somehow this horrible idea actually worked, and only a few minutes of chipping his health down later, he dropped the Clinger Staff. I finished up getting the souls I needed, and this time I felt really good about the Skeletron Prime fight. I crafted the mechanical skull and summoned him again. I already ran through the whole fight with you guys earlier, so I'm gonna make this quick. Outside of prioritizing the head more, the strategy hasn't changed at all. I simply dodged and aimed better. Eventually, I had all the arms down, and soon enough, I had killed the first mech boss. I was hesitant on what to craft for the hollowed bars, but a little bit of thinking later, and I had crafted a hollowed repeater. The next boss I wanted to fight was the Destroyer, and I assumed the hollowed repeater would probably be the best way to go about fighting him. I did say earlier I wanted to stay away from ranged, but the hollowed repeater was so convenient that it'd be kinda stupid to go for anything else. The pattern continues as I go to the Aether, grind out the souls I need, and craft the mechanical worm. By the way, these invisible Aether enemies are really starting to get annoying. I slept all night, and boom, Destroyer time. For the first 3 minutes of the fight, I once again sat in a box and struggled to fend off probes. After all, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, this fight was absolute misery. In that time, I was able to pile on 20,000 damage. Damn, 20,000 damage, that's a lot. That new upgrade really must have helped. Okay, something needed to change. Up until this point, I was really stubborn on leaving the box. This has always been the strategy for fighting the Destroyer, but I've come to the conclusion that it sucks ass and is outdated. Eventually, I left the box and honestly, it wasn't that bad. The extra speed from the wolf made dodging easier, and now all I had to worry about was the time. I was certain the better angles for the repeater would kill the Destroyer fairly quickly, but I was honestly very surprised at how mediocre the damage was. Like many high pierce weapons in the last couple of years, the Jester's arrows got a nerf where they lose 10% of their damage for each consecutive enemy pierce, and this is very noticeable. Take this shot for instance, where I literally load his ass up with arrows. I'm talking this dude ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner in one sitting. 4,000 damage. The nerf is so prevalent that on the later hits, you can see the damage get all the way down to the single digits. Back in 1.3, this would have taken out a good eighth of his health. Crazy how much the fight has changed since then. Fortunately, the Clear Staff was able to make up a lot of the lost damage, and with just a minute left in the night, the Destroyer was finally dead. Only one mech boss left, the twins. With the new Souls of Might I just got, I thought it would be a good idea to go for the new reworked light disc. In the most recent update, the light disc was changed to be only one item now instead of the previous 5. This changes nothing about the actual weapon, however it does allow for it to be reforged. Now, I still don't have a Goblin Tinker, so you may be wondering why I even went for this. To be honest, man, I'm right with you. I got no idea why I went for this, but I did, and in total, I'm gonna need 21 Souls of Light, 15 for the disc, and 6 for the mechanical eye. I made my way down to the previous underground hollow biome to start farming. I thought the Medusas where I previously farmed would be a problem, so I looked around for a bit to see if I could find another open area. I dug until I hit an underground desert biome, where I promptly turned my ass around. The marble biome will have to do. As I killed things, I flattened out the ground during downtime. Soon enough, a Medusa spawned. Oh no. Ugh, looks like I lucked out. Should be able to escape just in time. Upon returning, I placed down a water candle and things really started to get moving. There's a ton of enemies spawning in. I had to watch out for this Medusa, and hold on a damn minute. I know we're in an intense spot, but why does this stupid ass chest have to exist? When am I ever going to carry around a gold key to unlock it? Even if you do unlock it, you don't even get anything cool. You just get this dumbass old slime. Sorry about that. I killed off the big crowd of enemies, yielding me a bunch of souls before I got gibbied by this Medusa and died. In that time, a different Medusa had dropped a pocket mirror. I literally just forgot to use it. So after coming back with a pocket mirror equipped this time, I finished up getting the souls I needed and headed home to craft the light disc and mechanical eye. I got a warrior emblem from the Aether and then slept until the next night. Alright, making sure I have all my buffs. Yep, looks good. And blood moon. Well, time to find something else to do. I figured fishing was probably the most useful thing I could do at the moment, so I crafted a rod and made my way down to the corruption. The reason why I'm not going to fight the twins during a blood moon is due to the increased spawn rate. The last thing I need to focus on during a tough boss fight like the twins is a bunch of random possessed armors in my arena. With fishing, I'm mainly looking for a tsunami in a bottle. I realized my spot was also in an ice biome, so if I'm really lucky, I could even get a blizzard in a bottle as well. The fish I catch along the way will also come in handy. Fish make all sorts of useful buffs, most notably the endurance and wrath potions, which can be crafted with an armored cavefish and ebon core respectively. At least, these were the things I wanted. So far, I was only able to get one ebon koi with a few other random fish, and oh, speak of the devil. Hopefully a tsunami in a bottle, but let's see what we get here. 39 silver. Wow. A few moments later, I caught a zombie merman, reminding me that these stupid things exist. What sucks is that none of the blood moon creatures are even useful to me right now. They're just annoying. Like, come on, man, you even heard of Squeezo. Jeez, people these days. I swear to you guys, from here on out, I seriously could not stop catching these stupid things. Bullshit! It's like that merman changed the damn loot pool or something, because I'm pretty sure I caught more creatures than actual fish. Eventually, I just could not be bothered to continue attempting to fish, so I waited out the rest of the blood moon. In total, I walked away with one ebon koi, the first fish I caught. How poetic. But all that fishing was simply to fill in some downtime. The real thing I was concerned about was the twins, and after sleeping yet another daytime away, all my buffs were ready and I used the mechanical eye. There's a reason I saved these guys for last. They're hard. I'm not sure what the general consensus is around the difficulty of the mech bosses these days, but to me the twins have always been the hardest. This first phase is easy. Spasmatism shoots his fireballs, and Retinazer sometimes shoots a laser if he feels like it. The issue with the twins is that they move like complete weirdos. Spasmatism likes to stay parallel to your character, while Retinizer tries to position himself to the top right or left of you. This movement makes it incredibly annoying to use the light disc, as the discs either don't go far enough or go way too far and take forever to come back. Oh, I thought it would be a good idea to go for the new light disc. Screw the shitty ass light disc, I'm using the repeater. I prioritize killing Spasmatism first, as although Retinizer is easy now, he's an ass in his second phase, so I prefer fighting him solo. Spasmatism's second phase is very straightforward. Keep as much distance from the flamethrower as possible, and juke out his dashes. It didn't take long for him to be dead, and now I was just left with Retinizer. This part is super fun, but also really hard. It's best to try and circle him as much as possible, and let the lasers follow you. But sometimes you don't have enough time to get into position, and you're forced to try and strafe through them. A little bit of fighting later, and because Retinizer doesn't know anything about personal space, I died. I was now officially 0 for 3 on the mech bosses. This time, I wasn't too surprised I lost. Going into a fight fully expecting to use melee, only to switch to a repeater last minute, yeah, I wouldn't call that the best of strategies. Despite this, I was still insanely close to beating them, so I knew with the proper loadout, I'd have it in the bag. I started to prepare for the rematch right away. I crafted cursed arrows for the fight, purchased some hellfire arrows for my own convenience, and as I did so, a goblin army. I honestly thought it was bugged. Since I've gotten the last requirement for a goblin army to occur, over 3 hours have been spent playing on this world. Now, maybe I just don't understand probability, but a 1 in 3 chance every morning, for 3 hours straight, sleeping on multiple occasions. I may have just gotten very unlucky, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't surprised if Herobrine were afoot here. Having access to the Goblin Tinker is going to feel very weird. Up until this point, I haven't been able to reforge a single thing or combine any accessories. It's a luxury that's very easy to forget about when you're playing the game, and that means once the Tinker moves in, I'll experience a giant power spike. With that, the twins would be made basically free, but that's no fun. I've already beaten every other mech boss without the Tinker, so I'd feel guilty if I didn't kill the twins as well. Once the twins are down though, the Goblin Tinker will be a great head start as I work towards fighting Plantera, and best believe I'm going on a total reforge frenzy when the time hits. Anyways, I finished up killing the last few greedy goblins, and at long last, the goblin army was finally defeated. From here on, I did the same tasks as always. Grind souls, go to the Aether, craft the summon, yada yada yada, and bam, I was ready for the twins. I summoned them, and right away noticed something was off. Somehow I forgot a Featherfall potion, but it was no big deal. I turned on autopause, crafted one, and continued the fight. As anticipated, this fight went a lot smoother. With an archery potion, ranger emblem, and cursed arrows, the twins were getting absolutely shredded. The only part I even had a little bit of trouble on was juking out Spasmatasm of all things. Damn! But soon enough, he was dead, and I was left with only Retinizer. I recognized from my last fight that falling during his laser barrage was a super consistent way to avoid taking damage, so I did my best to position myself high off the ground whenever possible in order to be able to fall for the whole duration. This ended up working really well, and combined with the extra damage from all the new buffs I had, Retinizer was dead before I knew it. Just like that, every single mech boss is defeated, and without the Goblin Tinker as well. Felt pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. The only problem is that my next boss is Plantera, and I'm not even being sarcastic, I genuinely have no idea how that's gonna go. It's either gonna be insanely easy or hard as shit. Either way, I'm not too excited, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. For now, all 3 mech bosses have been defeated, which means I can finally craft the minecart upgrade kit. Oh, and I guess the pickaxe axe too, but who really cares about that? As soon as I was done crafting, I began the long, arduous task of searching for the bound goblin. The first place I checked was the underground ice biome, and oh shoot, there he is. Hey man, I'll take it. Before reforging, I wanted to get him to a happier location. My previous underground cabins, the really pretty ones remember, were the perfect spot. So, I started building a few houses in the mushroom biome for the demolitionist, tavern keep, and the clothier to make room for the tinker and mechanic to take their place. Once those houses were done, I slept until night in order to get everybody to move into their new homes. Now's where I start to splurge. I teleported to the goblin tinker, and the first thing I did was finally take advantage of that light disc rework. The more I used the light disc doing random tasks around the world, the more I realized it actually still has a lot of potential. Even though it's about as useful as a chocolate teapot in the twins fight, am I right? Yo, who the hell says that shit? I went to reforge it hoping for demonic or something, but this thing is so damn overpriced, Hurtful will have to do. Next, I bought Tinker's Workshop in order to upgrade some of my accessories. The Band and Cobalt Shield are no-brainers. Both can be upgraded to the Charm and Myths and Obsidian Shield respectively. It's about time to make use of that lucky horseshoe and red balloon I got earlier as well. This shit's probably all deflated by now, but whatever. I combined the sandstorm to bottle with the horseshoe and balloon and headed down to the tinker. In case any of you were wondering, no, the balloon sadly does not affect the wolf at all. The reason I crafted the yellow horseshoe balloon was purely to prevent fall damage. In classic Tinkerer fashion, I spent a platinum on this stupid ass balloon and another 70 gold on all the other accessories. That's all the reforging I had to do for now. Next, I needed to begin preparing for Plantera. Straight up, I had no idea what I wanted to do to start. I couldn't craft any chlorophyte armor. I wasn't sure if my current gear was strong enough, and if it wasn't, I didn't know what weapon I would use instead. Although I won't be using the shot bow, because that's boring, I settled on mining chlorophyte anyways. Well, if you can't craft armor and you don't want to craft the shot bow, then what's the point of mining chlorophyte? I don't know, man, it just seemed right. Armed with a mining potion, spelunker potion, and some cooked fish, I mined away. Besides chlorophyte, I was also looking for any Plantera bulbs that happened to generate, and even some life fruit if I was lucky. This is kind of the main thing that justified the decision for me. In the latest update, every world was guaranteed to generate a Plantera bulb after defeating all 3 mech bosses, so it didn't hurt to search around for a bit. And also, it did just seem right. Everybody knows that after you beat the mech bosses, you mine chlorophyte. I knew I would find a use for it eventually. Back to the Plantera bulb though, that is an awesome change. This latest update has made so many incredible changes, I really gotta take a moment to appreciate it. From here on, I mined for another 7 minutes or so before succumbing to yet another stupid boulder. What kind of boulder generates like this anyway? When I respawned, I was off with 300 chlorophyte ore, which should be enough for the rest of the run. I still hadn't thought of anything to craft with it, so I spent a few minutes just looking at chlorophyte bar recipes to see if I could come up with something. I really like the light disc by now, and I was basically set on using melee for the Plantera fight. It was only logical that I crafted the chlorophyte partisan to help me out with larger crowds. I reforged it to godly, got a warrior emblem from the Aether, and went to reforge that as well. I was going to explore some more of the jungle, purely looking for a Plantera bulb, but I just kept dying. Instead, I chose to work on the arena, and as time passes, hopefully some bulbs will grow. I loaded up on a ton of buffs, bought some dynamite, and headed over to the jungle. Surprisingly, the arena wasn't that frustrating to make. I found the most open area on the map and started blowing up things around it to make as much room as possible. As expected, I was constantly attacked by a variety of different enemies, but the hunter potion made it super easy to spot and kill them before they became a problem. I also fought Queen Bee while I was at it. There was a larva in the way of where I wanted to expand, and I guess it doesn't hurt to have the witch doctor move in either. I didn't realize they had changed their sound effects, so I literally thought it was real. No, I didn't. It did catch me off guard though. In total, it took me about 20 minutes to complete the arena. A lot less time than I thought it would. I briefly searched around for a Plantera bulb, but I ended up entering the sting zone of this sand poacher. I also ended up entering the sting zone of this hornet too. And I died. Back at the base, I decided I was ready for an attempt at Plantera. But in order to do that, I still needed a bulb. I searched around my map to see if I could spot anything, but after seeing no signs of a bulb, I grabbed a few buffs and started digging around unexplored areas of the jungle. The glorified partisan was super helpful while exploring the underground jungle. The spore clouds it shoots are able to travel through walls, so any enemy I saw in advance, I could just stay behind a wall and kill them. Besides exploring, it's also just a good weapon in general. The lingering effect of the cloud stacks out a lot of damage very quickly. Weapons like the light disc, cursed flames, and now glorified partisan, I'm being dead serious, I haven't used in years. It's been a lot of fun in this run to avoid using the same old weapons that I would typically call the meta, and astonishingly, I don't even feel like the weapons I've used so far have performed poorly either. You could argue the light disc wasn't great, but considering I have the confidence to use against Plantera, it clearly wasn't that bad. Soon enough, I was able to find a Plantera bulb. Because it was so far below my arena, I was going to need to construct a tunnel. This will allow me to safely lure Plantera up to the arena without constantly being attacked by enemies. It isn't anything special, just a vertical tunnel with a few twists and turns to dodge anything if necessary. While building it, I happened to get a Yellowts to drop. Although I have full intention of using the light disc for this fight, the Yellowts did seem like a good backup plan, just in case. Look, I believe in the light disc for this fight, but if it were to be dog shit again, I want to be prepared. Once I returned home, I reforged the Yellowts to Superior and kept a white string in one of my vanity slots. While I was at it, I stopped by the Tavern Keep to buy some ale. For the cost of only 4 defense, the boost you get from ale consists of this. And people wonder why it's alcoholics. I see almost no reason not to use this. Along with a few mugs of ale, I grabbed the usual buffs and made my way back to the Plantera bulb. I built up the courage to break the bulb, and Plantera was summoned. As I lured Plantera up to my arena, I tried to squeeze in a few sneaky hits with the partisan, but Plantera got mad, so I had to stop. Inch by inch, we eventually made it to the arena, and the Plantera fight had officially started. This first phase is unimaginably easy. As long as you keep circling her and avoid running into her very slow-moving claws, you'll evade every single projectile. The only exception I could possibly see to this is the spiked balls. With a shitty arena, these things will be bouncing all over the place, all up in your face, but with the right trick, they aren't a problem. Be sure to stick around till the end of the video to find out how. What? I'm just kidding. I'm sure many of you know this, but the key to preventing the spiked balls from becoming a problem is to just make your arena steeper. By having a large area below the main arena, the balls will bounce around below you rather than where you're fighting. You don't even need to add more platforms, you can just dedicate the space purely for the spiked balls. The entire first phase is literally the exact same thing over and over. Like, I seriously could have had the same clip on loop for 2 minutes and none of you would have noticed. Once I enter the second phase though, that's where the fight starts to get interesting. As soon as Plantera hits half health, she bursts into a giant death ball of planty tentacles and claws, and there's just shit everywhere. If it were just tentacles and claws as I described, the fight wouldn't be that bad. The main issue stems from how Plantera behaves. Unlike other melee enemies and bosses where they just follow you around in a straight line, Plantera attempts to corner you, oftentimes with great success, and if you try to escape, she pounces. This is why it was so hard for me to know how this fight would go earlier. It's a whole lot less predictable than most other fights, and if my lack of armor wasn't enough to tank a few blows, I could see this becoming a roadblock. Ultimately, I ended up dying on this attempt, but I felt pretty good. I learned a lot, and with a few subtle changes to my strategy, I should be ready for a rematch. You barely even got halfway through the second phase. How the hell could you have felt good at all? Okay, dickhead, let me explain. For one, the light disc actually did a great job. I don't see any reason to swap to a different weapon, so I'll continue using it. I think the biggest problem I had with the fight was the arena. The left side as a whole was a lot more narrow than the rest of the arena, giving me less opportunities to get around Plantera safely. Another issue I had was taking advantage of the opportunities I did get. A lot of times when I spotted a good escape route, I'd hesitate to take it at first and end up tanking a ton of hits as a result. Seriously, the hell kind of 1 IQ play is this? Lastly, as I expand the left side of the arena using dynamite, I noticed I'd completely forgotten to use campfires and heart lanterns. Stupid mistake, but an easy fix for the next fight. Speaking of the next fight, I was ready for it. I was confident the changes to my arena would help immensely, and with a few tweaks to my strategy, I felt that I totally had the potential to kill Plantera. I expanded the tunnel to a second bulb I found nearby, grabbed the exact same buffs, along with some campfires and heart lanterns, and made my way back down the tunnel. Of course, there had to be a skeleton archer where I was headed, but I killed his ass, healed up for a moment, and summoned Plantera. Once again, I slowly lured her up the tunnel. This time she tried to squeeze in a few sneaky hits, but I was able to escape through one of the caves I incorporated into the tunnel. We entered the arena and... after an exciting first phase, the real fight actually started. I felt the pressure immediately when I took a few hits right off the bat. The expansion to the arena helped me avoid as much as possible, but as I said previously, I was bound to take at least some damage. Even so, the few hits I did take really shook me up. In a difficult fight like this, I have a tendency to never take my eyes off the boss, which means I had no idea where my health was at. Later into the fight, I was hit twice back to back, and that made the fight get even more intense. Whatever health I was at, I knew it was low. Soon, I managed to get a health potion off, and from then on, despite some very close calls, I was well out of danger for the rest of the fight. Plantera died shortly thereafter, and in conclusion to the statement I made earlier, I wouldn't call this fight insanely easy, but it definitely was not as bad as I was expecting.